Hello, this is Eitan Shalom at the Body Mind Wellness Center, and I am going to review for you today a case study of one of the many people that I have successfully treated for acne, hormonal acne and cystic acne. This woman, it's a woman, 37 years old at the time that she came in, which was in 2015, and came in because of her acne that was on her cheeks and forehead, whiteheads, blackheads, and occasional cystic acne. And she's had this acne on and off since her teens, since her teen years. And at some points it got bad enough to use Accutane, to take Accutane. So now, the starting point when you're treating a woman with acne, and even with a lot of disorders, is to find out about the menstrual cycle, but especially acne because of the role of the hormones. There's a saying in Chinese medicine that it's easier to treat women than men because the menstrual cycle tells you everything. And that's really true, that a lot of times the menstrual cycle will hit the nail on the head before you've asked any other questions. So her case is interesting in that her periods are regular. It was pretty quickly, it was pretty easy to figure out early on that her acne was more stress related than hormonal in the classic sense, in that her menstrual cycles are regular. She has minimal premenstrual phase symptoms, occasional swollen breasts, occasional irritability, and also generally some bloating. And then her menstrual bleeding is easy. It's a medium amount of blood, no clots, no pain, no dark, unusual color, normal color, 2 days bleeding, 2 days full bleeding, and 4 days of light bleeding and spotting. She has good sleep, good appetite, good digestion, and daily bowel movements. So this is a fundamentally healthy woman, without a lot of comorbidities, as they would say in Western medicine. Good sleep, good appetite, good digestion, good elimination, good prognosis. This is someone who is going to probably be easy to treat because they have no major health problems otherwise. Having a little bit of tea here. She does have, or did have, some low back pain, treatable with massage. So nothing I had to focus on. So that's a really simple case. And her tongue presentation was slightly red, slightly peeled. So a little bit of heat, and enough heat that the yin is becoming deficient, which it becomes deficient at age 37 all on its own. I did treat her low back, as long as she was here for acupuncture. I did treat her low back, and her low back was all better after 1 or 2 treatments. And she also had been on spirolactine, which used to be used for PCOS. Why they gave it to her, I'm not sure. She has no evidence of PCOS. Perhaps it's used for the skin. But when she came in to see me, she wasn't on it, but she had been on it for 2 years. Now, I would like to, I'm looking at my notes a little bit more. Yes, one other factor. Yeah, okay, that's it. I don't need to get into that. Okay, so I want to talk about her case. Before I tell you what I did, sorry, I dropped my paper that I have to get. I'm out of the frame, but I'm still here. She wanted to be evaluated from the Ayurvedic perspective as well, and I find that can be very helpful for the patients themselves to understand their scenario, because the Ayurvedic intake paints a very clear picture for people of their body mind type. And so the kind of acne that she has is a function of pitta elevation. Why do I say that? Because pitta elevation involves fire or excessive heat. She doesn't have a lot of pus. She doesn't have oily skin. So she doesn't have dry skin. She had soft skin. So by deduction, that's a pitta elevation. Her menstrual cycle showed a little bit of pitta elevation. And she had a very pitta, this is what I was going to talk about a second ago. When I checked her pulse was a very bowstring pulse, very wiry. In Ayurveda, they describe it as feeling like a snake. You would have to have held a snake in your arm to know what that feels like. But when you hold, I grew up with snakes. So when you have my dad was a snake freak. And so we had boa constrictors, all of that. And so when you hold a snake in your arm or on your body, that feeling it's so muscular. And you know, snakes move by moving the muscles in their belly. And so that feeling is a very tense feeling. That's the kind of pulse that you're going to feel in someone like Donald Trump. But not only someone like Donald Trump or Stalin or Putin or Hitler. It doesn't have to be anything particular about, I mean, those are all examples. Some people would like Trump, some people would like Hitler, but you know, those are examples of very powerful people with a lot of aggression. But the pitta pulse, or what we call the wiry or bowstring pulse, which is associated in Chinese medicine with the wood type. These are people that are very strong, natural-born leaders. So they can be spiritual leaders like Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King. They don't have to be dictators, but you'll definitely find that pulse in fanatics and dictators, but you'll also find it in anybody with a lot of drive, anybody that's good at organization, managerial skills, anything involving control. And that doesn't have to be over control. It could just be organization and control. So CEOs, lawyers, people with a lot of drive. She had that pulse. And the other thing is that showed the pitta elevation were some key questions that I asked her as part of my Ayurvedic intake, which is that, and she, you know, you can give yourself a score from zero or 1 to 5, and these are the ones she had 5s for. And sorry, let me just drink a little again. She has a tendency to lose her temper. She can be critical and argumentative. I tend to be strong-willed and somewhat forceful by nature. These are all high scores. I am a perfectionist and am intolerant of errors. So none of those are positive attributes. Those are all evidence of pitta dosha being elevated, being unbalanced. Okay? And now what does that do to your body? And so that pitta dosha being elevated, or what we would call in Chinese medicine, liver depression, qi stagnation, that causes your qi to stagnate. When everything that involves aggression, the fight aspect of the fight or flight, everything that involves over control, everything that involves short temper, that all causes our qi to stagnate. And because qi is warm, that creates heat. So I could spend, you could study that for a year in order to understand it. So it's impossible for me to teach that thoroughly right now. But I just wanted you to understand that my starting point in treating her was to address the pitta elevation. And the reality is 99% of the time with acne, you have pitta elevation, because you have pitta elevation. Pitta, when it elevates, creates pathological heat. Pitta, when it elevates, creates pathological heat. And pathological heat can manifest in many different ways. It can manifest in muscular tension. It can manifest in hot type skin disorders. It can manifest with diarrhea. It can manifest with hot type gut disorders like gastritis and GERD. So that's all seen as elevated Pitta in Ayurveda, and in Chinese medicine, that's all evidence of stagnation of the qi. Your qi is your body's physiological energy. And when your physiological energy is stressed to the point where there's tension as opposed to fear. Fear, I was just watching a documentary about somebody who'd been badly abused. And she talks about, though was feeling very enraged, I was frozen with fear. I was cold with fear. So fear creates movement where there should be calm, nervousness, anxiety, because in nature, when you have fear, you want to run away, and that's how you survive danger, by running away. But the fight aspect of the nervous system, which is associated with, again, dominance, control, all of that, not suffering fools gladly. Again, I think Donald Trump's an easy example. Even if you like him, you know, he doesn't suffer fools gladly, and he's hot-tempered, and you can see it in his face. When we're angry, you know, how do we look when we're angry? How can you tell that someone's angry at you? By the fire in their eyes. So I'm using the word anger, but it doesn't have to be anger. Everything that when we refer to stress, especially stress of the modern world involving work, we describe pressure. And what does a pressure cooker do? It condenses the heat. And the heat here is our natural physiological fire. Life is a process of warm transformation of food and liquid and air into energy. And that, what we're calling energy there in the pure biological sense, in Chinese medicine we call qi, and in Ayurvedic medicine we call prana. It's as simple as that. So now, how did I treat her? We did do acupuncture, obviously, and without going into a ton of detail about the acupuncture, there are specific acupuncture points that we use to clear heat from the blood. So let's say one thing, that acne, I'm saying that qi stagnation or pitta elevation causes heat, pathological heat, and then that can lead to heat in the skin. But when it leads to heat in the skin, we call that blood heat. You know, my mother used to be so angry and she'd say, my blood is boiling. We actually, almost everything in Chinese medicine we have language for in natural English language. All the metaphors for anger involve heat, hot-tempered, eyes burning with fire, don't get so hot around the collar, etc., etc. So we call it heat in the blood, and the blood circulates, and then the heat rises to the surface, and the surface in this case is the skin, as opposed to the deepest part of your body, the bone marrow, for example. So and it's interesting because in cases like HIV/AIDS or tuberculosis, we see heat rising to the skin and lesions on the skin. Also, we see heat with tuberculosis. My favorite writer, one of my favorite writers, Anton Chekhov, had tuberculosis. And in the spring, when the ice of the river in St. Petersburg, or I think it was Moscow, actually, I forget, I think it was Moscow, when the river would thaw, it would get warm enough that the river would thaw, he would know that he was going to start to cough up blood. And it had to do with the seasonal energy of the warmth. The warmth that was warming nature was also stirring his blood in his body, and he would cough blood. So tuberculosis, the heat that's deep inside comes out through bleeding. And then also the old-fashioned name for tuberculosis was consumption, because in tuberculosis, your body wastes away, as with HIV/AIDS, and that's why it was called consumption. So you do acupuncture points to clear heat from the blood, points at the elbows and knees, for example. If someone has a lot of qi stagnation, a lot of pitta elevation, then you do points to relax the qi, to circulate the qi, to circulate the liver qi, And then, I'll refer you at the bottom. At the bottom, there'll be a link to the article on my website. When someone has cystic acne, we can do points right around the cyst. It's called circling the dragon. That's a particular acupuncture technique that we use for cystic acne. You know what? It's 15 minutes. I'm going to stop the video now. This will be part 1. I didn't expect to talk so much about the theoretical part. And now comes part 2, where I'll review the treatment that I did.